Hello my book babes, welcome back to my channel. If you're not new here, if you are new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. You guys, I have another reading vlog for you that I need to start and I am so excited for this one. I am going to be doing a most anticipated releases reading vlog. So these books are going to fall into two categories. Either one, they have not been released yet and I have an advanced reader copy that I am dying to get to, or they've been recently released and I just haven't read them yet for whatever reason and I really want to. So it's like half mood reading, but half a little bit of a schedule, a little bit of a strict boundary, you know. I have, let's see, 6 book options because you guys know that I DNF at like the drop of a hat. So I always like to have lots of options during my reading vlogs because if I ever DNF or maybe I'm just feeling a particular vibe or a different genre, I have, again, options. So I thought I'd go through the books that I picked for this vlog and then we can get started. So when it comes to a book that's unreleased and I have an arc of, I'll be picking up Kiss of the Black Flame by Helen Schurer. I forgot to look up her last name before I started this vlog. Anyways, she has written many a romantasy trilogies and I have yet to get to them. However, I've seen the character art, the previews of the spicy scenes in this romantasy, and I got so hyped. So when I got sent this by Atria, my jaw was on the floor. I was so shook and I was so excited and I knew I wanted to pick it up as soon as possible. So this is definitely like one of the books I'm most excited to read in this reading vlog, and I will give you all the non-spoilery details on if it's worth your time or not, because even though I'm very excited for it, even though I got an arc from the publisher, I will still be honest. If I hated this or DNF'd it, I would tell you guys. Do I think it's gonna happen? No, based on what I know about it. However, it's always a possibility. But yes, Kiss of the Black Flame, that's going to be one option. Now, a book that literally just got released last week, it is Daybreak. This is a sequel. The first book in this duology was Nightshade by Autumn Woods, and this is a dark academia, sort of murder mystery, enemies to lovers romance. I loved Nightshade, I really, really did. And so this is the second and I think final book in the series. I'm actually a little nervous. I've heard mixed things about this book. So I'm going in wanting to love it, truly, but we will see. I am very excited for this though. I will say, since it's the second book in a series, when I do review this, it'll probably include spoilers, so I will definitely include timestamps below, and I'm probably going to save this for the very end of the vlog. So that way, if you don't care about this book or you don't want to know spoilers, you can just, you know, end the video. So this will probably be the last book I read, but it's what I'm, again, very excited for. We also have Dave Ellis's newest thriller, Keep Them Close. Now, he has another thriller that's very popular called Look Closer, I think. So for the longest time, I thought those two books were like interconnected and I had to read Look Closer first, but I looked it up and they're not. So I can read this first and it doesn't matter. This is a library copy. I just need to keep on top of my library books, honestly, so that's partially why I also included this. The description says, 2 siblings, 1 murder, so many lies. Siblings Allison and Luke have been through a lot together. They've always stood by each other. They do anything for each other, or so it seems. When Allison's husband Finley is murdered, the investigation threatens to expose the siblings' darkest secrets. Is there incest going on here? Why is that like the first thing my mind jumps to? I don't know. An illicit affair, a decades-old accident, a stunning deception. How do these events explain Finley's death? How far will Allison and Luke go to keep their secrets buried? The most shocking betrayal might lie a little too close to home. I feel like I would have heard if this was incesty, but you never know. But yes, David Ellis, I feel like, is a very up-and-coming thriller author. Like, people really, really like him, and I've never read a book by him before, so I'm excited for this one. Also recently released is Games, a love story. This has been getting a lot of hype on BookTok lately. I've heard it's pretty steamy, but it's also supposed to be like a literary fiction, I think, not like a true romance. This is a coming-of-age debut chronicling the turbulent romance between a brilliant economics grad student and a magnetic Wall Street banker 2 decades her senior. So, okay, so it's an age gap sort of thing going on. So our main character, Lily, will have to decide if she's willing to risk great loss again for the hope of profit that is finally within reach. So yeah, I've heard it's a little steamy, but very, very good. People say they cannot put the book down, etc. So I'm excited for it. And so these last 2 books, I feel like are interchangeable in the sense that I could go for either or depending on my mood. I could read all of these books. I could read only 4 of them in this vlog. We just have to see what the vibe is. But I felt like I needed one more romantasy in this pile because it's like my favorite genre. So I decided to pick up This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. This did get published, I think, like a few months ago, so it's not the newest release. However, it's one that a lot of people love. I feel like you either like it or you don't. There's people that are obsessed and it's like the best book of the year. But then I've heard there's people that say that there's a lot of info and world dumping in the beginning and they find it hard to get past. So I am just curious to see if I could push past all of the info dumping and be the one that likes this. I have the Stunning Special Edition from Moonlight Bookbox, so it's about time that I try to read this. It's a bit on the thicker side. It's around 450 pages. But yeah, we'll see. Or if I'm more of a literary fiction, weird girl lit mood, I do have Close Relationships with Strangers. I was also gifted this by Simon & Schuster through their Simon Books program, so I want to make sure that I'm staying on top of those books to read and review as well. This follows a Las Vegas wildlife photographer who moves to Los Angeles to become a paparazzi, and in the process loses his relationships, his morals, and eventually his tether to reality. I love, what's that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal? Is it Nightcrawler? The idea of like paparazzi is so fascinating to me. And so the idea of kind of reading a Nightcrawler-ish book sounds so appealing. So this is one I definitely have been meaning to pick up for a long time. But you see, now the question is, what book do I start with? I don't know why, but after just reading that synopsis like literally just now, I'm really in the mood for, I think, this weird girl, maybe weird boy lit. It's written by a woman, but the main character is a man. So I don't know what you classify that as. But this just sounds so fascinating. I love the cover. And I'm kind of in the mood for it. Okay, so our first book of this anticipated releases reading challenge is Close Relationship with Strangers. I will check back in either when I have something to say and I'm in the middle of the book or at the very end. Let's get to reading. Hello guys, funny seeing you here at a mid-book update, because if you watch my channel or my vlogs at all, you would know that a mid-book update is actually quite rare. I'm just like powering through these books and I just give an update at the very end. But I am 162 pages in, just a little over halfway in. I'm really liking this, guys. They're following this guy named Ben, and it starts off with him in Los Angeles, and he's already a paparazzi, but then it splits the timeline between his current day paparazzi Los Angeles single lifestyle and back when he was living in Las Vegas like 3 years ago. And he was a busser at this restaurant. He meets this girl and they get into a very serious relationship. So those are two separate timelines. And it's really interesting because this guy is just not a good person, but in a very fun way for the reader. And yeah, I'm just really into the story so far. I feel like I'm very curious to see how this will end. I'm not sure exactly what the climax or the conclusion might be, but if it keeps going the way it has, I could see this getting like 4.5 to 5 stars, honestly, as of right now. So yeah, so I gave you a little update. I'm gonna finish this tonight, probably in the next couple hours, and I might do probably a full review tomorrow. But yeah, I am very excited that I'm enjoying this so much. I haven't read a lot of weird literature in a little while. I've been kind of in a fantasy romance mood. So the fact that I'm really enjoying this weird literature, it's like making me in the mood for more weird girl lit. I'm excited. This is exciting. So that's my mid-book update, and I will see y'all once I'm finished. Alrighty, my friends, we are back. I'm back with an update. Got wet hair, no makeup. It is what it is. I am back with an update. I did finish Close Relationship with Strangers, and I'm giving it 4 star. 4 star. I think this is great if you love weird stories. It's chock full of characters you love to hate, obsession and delusion, and that desperation that occurs when you really have nothing left to lose. I could not put this book down for the first like 60%. I was reading it while I was getting my nails done, and I was flying through it. We follow a lowly busboy at a restaurant named Ben, and he works at this particular restaurant in Las Vegas where a movie was filmed, and the actor that is in that movie is a huge movie star named Jack Whitlock. The restaurant he works in is always playing his movies, and there's like this specific table where the film was filmed, you know, and so people are going there pretending to be Jack Whitlock. So he kind of has this obsession with Jack Whitlock and has kind of made him a pillar in his life of like stability and comfort. But then he meets a Las Vegas dancer named Ellery and they start a relationship. However, Ben's always had this idea that he never wanted to be in Las Vegas, he wanted to be in LA. Ben also has tried photography out in the past and has tried to be a wildlife photographer, but it's never worked out for him. But him and Ellery seem to be doing well when one day he's working a catering event for the restaurant at a wedding, and he sees a person he used to know working at the restaurant, and the guy's like, hey, I just moved to LA and I'm a paparazzi out there and it's stupid easy and you get a lot of money. And long story short, Ben finds this enticing enough to try to ask Mallory to move to LA with him. They do, and you follow a dual timeline, one in the past where they're getting together, they move to LA, and the subsequent dissolution of the relationship relationship, and then present day, where Ben is still a paparazzi in LA, but he's low on funds. Him and Ellery have broken up, and he's really kind of hit a low point in his life. I found Ben's voice and mind fascinating to be around and be in. Again, he's not a good person, really. He's incredibly selfish and self-serving and obsessive, a little delusional. The prose in this book is simple but effective. I didn't really find anything extraordinary about it, but I didn't dislike it either. And there's just that juicy element of slimy people doing bad things that keeps you turning the page. I think there's two weak points of this novel. The first being that I wish we had gotten more background on Ben. We kind of get a very surface level explanation in the very beginning of the book that his parents treated him more like roommates than like a loving parent-child relationship, but that's really all we get for his backstory and kind of why he is the way he is. So I feel like it would have been interesting to know more about him to explain his behavior. But then really the weakest point of this novel is the ending. I mean, you guys saw me, I was really enjoying it as I was reading it. I was like, ooh, 4.5 to a 5. But alas, as it happens in a lot of books, the ending fell flat. There's this build-up to Ben finally tracking Jack Whitlock down because Jack Whitlock is in the mid of a scandal. So if he can get a picture of Jack during this time, he can get a lot of money, and he feels like he can pull himself out of this hole he's dug. And so he does more and more unhinged things to track Jack down. And instead of the ending kind of coming to this climax conclusion, this epic unhingedness, it kind of falls flat and it's left to be ambiguous and artsy. If the author had instead decided to just go there with the ending and really commit, this could have been a 4.5 to a 5 star. It really could have been a home run. But as you'll see with a lot of reviews on this book, if you go on Goodreads or Fable, a lot of people say they did not like the ending. I think it's just like if you're going to be an unhinged weirdo and you're going to write characters that way, let them be their unhinged weirdo self. Don't end it with little to no explanation of the next step. I don't know. I just don't think this was the type of book where you wanted it to be ambiguous. 4-star though, I still had a good time and I would still recommend it to people. I would say just be prepared that if you love it for the majority of the time, the end of the book is a little bit flat. You're not going to get this like super interesting climax, but I feel like the entirety of the book was still worth it, even though the ending wasn't what I wanted. So yeah, Close Relationship with Strangers, first book of the vlog. I had a good time, I'd recommend. And then I picked up This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. I kind of surprised myself with picking this up next because I thought I'd pick up Kiss the Black Flame. But when I picked this up, I just wasn't in the mood for a super spicy romancy, actually, which is kind of weird. And I know that Kiss the Black Flame does have very explicit open door spice, and at least in the promotional materials, it's very emphasized on. So I decided to pick up This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me instead. I am, how many pages in? 100 pages in. This book is very unique to me. We follow our main character Maggie, and she is obsessed with these fantasy novels, but one day she wakes up and she is inside the city where these fantasy novels take place. And we actually meet her like 3 days post having been put into this world. So she's already kind of like on the move and doing things in this book. I know that a lot of people complain about the world building, and there is a lot of world building, mostly just like telling you the character's background and stuff like that. However, I feel like I haven't really minded it as much because it comes across more like your best friend is telling you the plot of their favorite book and they're super excited about it and they gotta tell you all the small little details versus like an author that I don't know and I don't have connection to, just info dumping. I feel like it's more the first thing I said, so I feel like even though I can acknowledge some of the moments are a little too broken up with these info dumps, I'm not really minding it as much as I thought I would be, which is a good thing. 100 pages in, I think the romance with the guy that she's going to have romance with is just getting started. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I feel like if I'm not invested in a romance by 100 pages, it drags for me a little bit. So I'm glad that that is picking up, and I'm interested in how the rest of the plot is going to go. She basically is torn between not changing anything about how she knows the story is going to go in this town, because what if she changes enough things where then she can't predict what's going to happen, or changing things because she wants to save her favorite characters. Now, it's poised that she has that dilemma, but she says screw it and does what she wants and interferes 99% of the time. So really there's no like dilemma, she's just gonna interfere. So I have this feeling that she's gonna interfere to the point where by the end of the book we don't know what's gonna happen, she doesn't know what's gonna happen, and I am very excited for that. And yeah, my goal would be to finish this today. It's Friday, let's see what time it is. It's 1 p.m. If I really just sit down with it, hopefully I will finish it. So yeah, that is the update for this reading vlog. And I'll let y'all know if I have anything else to say about this book before I finish it. Hello friends, I am back and I have finished This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. What an interesting ride. What a roller coaster. This book went up and down for me, not only in how I was feeling about it, but pacing, expectations. And I've written out my review and I think I've settled on a 3.75, which is slightly disappointing. I wanted to really love this like other people have, but there was just too many things that I did not love about this. Let me start by saying the beginning of this book, I think like the first 200 pages were pretty good. Because the story is a portal fantasy where your main character is dropped into a fantasy world. In this case, she literally went to sleep and she woke up in her favorite fantasy novel. There is going to be a certain level of info dumping or world building, right? And like I mentioned when I did my check-in, for the first like 200 pages, it truly felt like it was more like a best friend explaining their favorite book to me. And I liked it. I didn't mind it. It was a little bit verbose at times, sure, but I just wasn't minding it as much as it seemed like other people do. However, I do want to give an update on that and say that by the midway towards the end point, that info dumping and telling, not showing, it did get to be very, very overwrought, unnecessary, and distracting from the plot. So unfortunately, that impression did not hold, and it did start to aggravate me. Also, like I mentioned, our FMC literally goes to sleep, gets dropped in this fantasy world. We meet her 3 days post when she got dropped in this world, so perhaps she did her mourning and her grieving of her past life during those 3 days that we missed, but she rarely mentions home life in this book. It's like a very much a throwaway line of like, oh, this made me think of my parents, miss them, and then she moves on. She kind of hits the ground running, knows what to do, and has no qualms about it that much. So I felt like that was a little bit unrealistic when it came to this book. Like, imagine literally falling asleep and waking up in a completely different world. I just feel like most people would have more emotions about it, especially because it doesn't seem like she has a bad home life. I feel like it'd be one thing if, like, I don't know, maybe she was orphaned, maybe she was in a bad situation and coming to this, new world wouldn't disturb her that much. But like, it seems like she has a good family and should be properly missing them and wanting to go home, but she doesn't. So I don't know, kind of interesting in that way. I just felt like I wanted more of her emotional side and like how she's experiencing being thrust into this new world. I also realized midway through that this is not a romantasy. I don't know about y'all if you've seen this book on your FYP or on social media. I personally feel like the marketing that's been directed at me has said this is a romantasy. And I feel like we've all kind of agreed that romantasy means 50% romance, 50% plot. And that if the romance was not involved in this book, the book would fall apart. That is not the case with this book. This is a very standard fantasy, maybe even an epic fantasy with a romance B-plot, a very, very slow burn. And we were like midway into the book and like nothing had happened with anything romantic. And I was like, what's happening here? So I had to definitely adjust my expectations. And I do feel like maybe if this was marketed more properly, where I went into it thinking it was an epic fantasy, maybe my expectations could have been more met instead of not met, So I do think if you go into this expecting your typical romantasy with how much romance is in a normal one, you're going to be sorely disappointed. I think this was a roller coaster because again, the beginning I really enjoyed, the middle slogged, and then the ending, the last 20%, particularly the last 10%, I really enjoyed. I thought was great. So I will say I have a question about the very, very ending. Like basically, long story short, someone comes back from the dead and something happens to our FMC, and I'm kind of wondering why the big touch her and die MMC wasn't around. I don't know. Anyways, but it left me feeling a new type of feeling when it comes to romantasy, because I feel like with romantasy series, I'm either foaming at the mouth, desperate, needing the next book in the series, or I just don't care at all and I don't continue the series and, it's whatever. But this, I feel like I would pick up the next book in the series, but I'm not in intense anticipation. I'm kind of like, when it comes out, I'll give it a shot. I'm not really feeling strongly either way, which is a new feeling, and why I settled on a 3.75. I could have rated it a 4-star, but as I was writing out my review and I was writing out my grievances, I was like, I'm feeling more middle of the road than positive. So for me, a 3.75 is my middle of the road. I know like a 3-star would be technically the middle of the road. Just bear with me in my mind, okay? But for me, 3.75 is very much like there were some good things, there were some bad things, and they're almost equal in measure. So yeah, that was This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. crazy. Yeah, this book is, I don't know how to feel. I just don't know how to feel. But anyways, I'm gonna grab the next 2 books we'll be reading for this reading vlog because I'm going on a little trip, like a little weekend trip to Denver to see Noah Kahan, and that is me and my husband's like favorite artist. However, of course, I'm gonna be bringing books because we're gonna be on a plane, we're gonna be in a hotel room, I'm gonna have time to read. So let me grab my selections for the rest of this portion of the vlog. Might be kind of stupid to use part of my carry-on luggage for a hardback books, but we're doing it. I'm gonna bring Keep Them Close by David Ellis. This is the thriller that I've picked, and I'm very excited. I feel like traveling is great for thrillers because you need something that will keep your attention and is fast-paced and easy to get through. So that's what we're bringing. And then Games, a love story. I know this is more of a romantic, slightly sensual, sexy story, so we'll see how I feel. But yeah, seems interesting. I just want to save Daybreak, that book that was a sequel, for the very end, like I said, and then Kiss the Black Flame, I want to be home for and it's like give my undivided attention to. So that's why I'm choosing these 2 books. And then we will be doing a book crawl, a bookstore crawl in Denver. So even if somehow I got through these 2 books, I'm going to be buying more anyways while I'm in Denver, so it won't really matter. But yeah, that's the reading vlog update. I will let y'all know. I'm going to bring my camera, so I will keep y'all updated while we're in Denver on my reading status. And I really hope these next 2 books are good. But so far, the reading vlog, it's been good. Nothing's blowing me out of the water yet, but it's been solid, so I hope that continues. And I will see y'all in my next check-in. Hello everyone, new location. I am here in Denver in my hotel room. This is the night after we went to the Noah Kahan concert and it was incredible. We had a great time. We'll be leaving today. We are gonna hit a few more bookstores. I did a little bookstore crawl video on my TikTok of the Denver bookstores. And then today we're going up to Boulder where we used to live for a couple months when my husband was interning, and we're gonna do a couple bookshops there as well. So if you wanna see those bookstore crawl vlogs, head over to my TikTok and my Instagram. However, the main update I have for you is that I finished Look Closer by Dave Ellis, and I'm giving this 3 stars. This just did not impress me. I feel like, unfortunately, even though I know this is a vlog and like I should be giving you guys detailed reviews after I finish the book, I just don't have much to say. So I thought I might just read my Goodreads review and like leave it at that. So on Goodreads, I said 3 out of 5 stars. Well, that was underwhelming. When pondering why I didn't love this book, I think it comes down to it just being not believable in all aspects. The sibling dynamic, the husband-wife relationship, the proceedings of the detectives, etc. all felt very convenient all the time. The plot felt engaging at some moments, but unsurprising and slower in others. And I haven't read the author's other book, Look Closer, which is everyone else seems to love, so perhaps it was the wrong book to start on, but I'll give him another chance in the future. That sums it up. Yeah, I don't even want to put in the effort to describe the plot of this book to y'all. It's funny because it's not like I despised it. I was just very, very underwhelmed, and something was missing. The je ne sais quoi of a thriller was missing, and yeah, that's all I really have to say. So I don't know. People love, is it Dave Ellis or David Ellis? And like I mentioned, that book Look Closer, which I still have on my physical TBR as well. People seem to love that book and give it no criticism, where it seems like people are kind of divided on this new one. So I am just being one of those people that didn't love it. I will read Look Closer still. I'm going to give him another chance, but not a great start for Mr. David Ellis. I don't know. I think as a sister who has a brother, I just truly felt like maybe at the core of it, the relationship sibling dynamic was not well fleshed out at all. We're supposed to believe that they're super close, yet I feel like we get little to no background on their relationship, and then they're fighting but not fighting the entire story, and the reasoning why felt a little, again, convenient and convoluted. I don't know. I just didn't feel like I could really relate to these characters and understand why they were doing what they were doing, you know? So yeah, 3 star. That being said, my next read is going to be the other book I brought and I picked for this vlog, and that is Games, a Love Story. So as far as I know, this is an age gap, coming of age romance. So we will see how I like it. Hopefully I'm gonna start reading this in the airport. Hopefully it doesn't get too steamy on me. It'd be kind of awkward, but yeah, that being said, I'm very excited for this one. I've heard mostly all good things. So I will update y'all once I have something to say about Games, a Love Story. Hi guys. I finished Games, a Love Story. I'm laughing to myself because the rant I'm about to go on is going to be diabolical, because Games, a Love Story just made history for me personally as a reader. It is the first book I've ever finished that I've given 1 star. 1. Why is that? Because normally when I hate a book enough that I feel like if I finished it, I give it a 1 star, I just DNF it. Y'all know me. I DNF at the drop of a hat. If I'm hating a book, why would I push through? However, I almost hate read this. Again, for the first time, I normally don't hate read things. I DNF. That's my policy. But I got 70% in to the point where I could have and wanted to DNF, and maybe I truly would have if not for this challenge. So interesting that this vlog is making me push through. But I was also hating it so much that I was like, I have to see this through because the climax hadn't really happened yet, about 70% in, and I was like, there has to be something else that's gonna go on in this relationship. So yeah, 1 star. This book is fucking atrocious and I hate it. And if you've already read this and you loved it, I would just click to the next book. Click to the next book because I am going to be talking about this book as if I hate it. Like, I hate it with every fiber of my being, and you don't have to expose yourself to that, okay? When I see people review books that I love and they're like going to town on hating it, I skip it. I truly do, because why would I get myself enraged for no reason? If I love something, that's enough for me. So if you love this book, please just skip everything. So, Games Love Story. It's basically about a 23-year-old girl named Lily who's a grad student, and she's this raging democratic socialist but also somehow a commie. She's studying economics, and she, believes in that typical left-wing thing of like healthcare for all, eat the rich, affordable housing, free college, etc., right? And she meets a 40-something-year-old named Alexander who fled from Russia when he was a teenager and basically is very pro-capitalist and is basically like a financial investor. I don't know. They were talking a lot about like economical things between them, and some of this stuff went over my head. It truly did. The author does not really give you any concrete explanation for complex economical stuff going on. I believe the author herself studied and majored in economics, so it kind of felt like she threw this shit in there and didn't really give the average reader any explanation. So as far as I could tell, he was some sort of financial investor. He was like the CEO. He's a millionaire. And they start this age gap romance. It's mostly just sex at the beginning, and it basically follows their love story. I don't think I've ever wanted to slap a character as bad as I did with Lily. Let's go over her main character traits, shall we? Emotionally immature and unregulated. She sobs, cries anytime she feels any emotion slightly uncomfortable, and she does this almost every time her and Alexander have sex because it's trauma sex. Refuses to get therapy or any sort of professional help for the way that she feels. Pushes people away even though they've given her no reason to. Is into really unsafe BDSM, mostly choking until she passes out with little to no safe word or discussion beforehand. And like I mentioned, she is just a pretentious caricature of a democratic socialist, even though she's also somehow a raging commie. But she's also a hypocrite because the second she gets with this older, hot millionaire boyfriend, her morals just go out the fucking window. I can understand, sure, at 23, I was a mess in a variety of ways, but it seems like Lily goes to lengths to make herself as insufferable as possible. And meanwhile, it does feel like the author wants us to find her as sort of a lovable, flawed dork that we like come to love and understand deeply. And I just could not roll my eyes enough while reading from her perspective. But let's not forget our equally pretentious MMC, Alexander, again, 40-something, Russian, and because he escaped from Russia, he is constantly choking down on the balls of capitalism and socialism has never worked ideology. And of course, again, he's like a venture capitalist, so his whole thing is working with money, and he is obsessed with gaining power and influence and control through wealth. He seems to care about Lily, yet when they get into their various plentiful political debates, he has little to no empathy for anyone but himself and I guess Lily, because she will basically ask him in such few words, what about poor people? Or do you care about people who are in poverty? And his whole mentality is literally, he said, sink or swim. And his basic ideology is, that's not my problem. I mean, fucking ick, dude. But instead of Lily and him coming to blows or breaking up over their radically opposite political beliefs and morals at the end of the day, they kind of always end these discussions on agree to disagree just so they can keep banging and not have to come to the consequences of their true ideological differences. Not to mention, if there is any conceding on either of their parts, it's almost always from Lily, somewhere to the line of, oh, we actually just made a good point there. So it kind of seems like the author was inserting her own pro-capitalist dogma into this book, and the only instance of Alexander kind of seeming really listening to Lily and taking any sort of action from her perspective is that he sent some email to his coworker being like, we need to invest in more environmentally friendly companies. And for some reason, we're supposed to applaud Alexander, and Lily takes this as like a win in her mind, like she won some sort of battle, like parades it around. It's like a chip that she won because he's gonna maybe invest in some more environmentally friendly companies, even though he's literally the opposite and the antithesis of everything she believes in. And so therefore, with her sleeping with him, excusing him as a person, it shows that her morality, her political beliefs are flimsy. And that's where you get the sort of more pro-capitalistic aura to this book, because Alexander is extremely firm and direct and stable in his beliefs, and Lily is the one that seems to be conceding and coming around to some of his perspectives. And again, still willing to sleep with him and be in a relationship with him eventually, even though, again, they're complete opposites in this manner. It literally is as if my main core belief was reproductive rights, and I decided to sleep with a man who advocates staunchly against reproductive rights. Like, what are we doing? But outside of their political debates that go nowhere and fail to express anything meaningful, here's how the general plot goes, and I'm going to give a spoiler warning right now. I can't fully talk about my hate for this book without spoiling it. So spoiler warning, spoiler warning. I'm going to put it in the caption, in the description, timestamps if you want to skip to the end of this review. Spoilers ahead for the plot of this book. So the plot basically goes like this. The two main characters hook up, and Lily wants to keep it casual despite Alexander clearly taking a keen interest in her almost immediately. Then Lily finally has to get over herself and stop saying that it's just casual, as particularly when they're almost basically living together. But she gets scared one night when they attend a gala, and afterwards she was like, hey, what happened with your previous ex? Like, why aren't you guys together anymore? And Alexander was basically like, I did not see myself marrying her, insinuating that he did see himself marrying Lily. Now, does Lily get excited about this? No. It freaks her out because nothing good ever happens to her. No one ever truly wants her. And she feels like he's going to end up hurting her at some point anyways, because why would he ever want her? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe I forgot to mention that her trauma is that her parents died when she was young. Then she was sent with a foster family who was lovely, but never formally adopted her. So she has this big trauma around being wanted, around being close with people, etc. So what does Lily do with this information that Alexander may see her serious enough to marry her? Well, he leaves for a work trip and she decides to pack up all her shit from his apartment, ghost him, and then cheat on him. So that way there's no going back and she can hurt him before he hurts her. It's so fucking stupid. And then after a few weeks of self-loathing and pitying, Lily comes to the revelation that she needs to stop shutting people out. Not only Alexander, but also her friends. She needs to let people in truly and realize that people are going to be there for her and that she is wanted. And of course, she regrets doing everything, ghosting him, cheating on him. And she comes crawling back, begging for a second chance. Alexander gives it to her because he's obsessed with her and he can't keep her out of his head. So she's like, fine, we'll make it work. And then the book basically ends with him being like, I want to have kids with you. And then, it ends. Oh, and in between all that, they're constantly having sex. And it's as ridiculous and exhausting as it sounds. It was just insufferable, immature, icky, and again, just stupid to me. It was just dumb. I got nothing out of this book that was valuable. And the message the author seems to want to send is older rich men are hot, duh, capitalism good, and you need to overcome your trauma in order to be in a healthy relationship. Also, duh. Wow. Revolutionary. It's just a clear attempt on wanting to be a book that says something but communicates nothing. And ultimately, a waste of my time. This book is a waste of time. That is my rant review of Games of Love Story. I know it was harsh. I know it was a lot. And again, normally I never go this hard on a book, but I've also never rated a book 1 star. I just feel like if you admire this book, if you think this is a great love story, we need to get better role models for relationships. We really, really do. This was so dramatic. There were multiple times where it felt like, did she just write this so it would become a movie or something? Because Lily is sobbing and throwing herself on the floor. It's just these dramatic ass moments. Lily was really a caricature of the far left socialist, but she was also almost a caricature of Gen Z in a way. And I don't know. Yeah, all of it felt just so empty and devoid of anything authentic. So yeah, hated it. That's the reading update, unfortunately. Yikes. Let's talk about which book I'm reading next for this vlog. And that is going to be Kiss of the Black Flame. Dear God, don't let me down, this book. I have very high expectations. I have very high hopes. If this book is a letdown, I'm gonna be so sad. Like I mentioned previously, this is a bookbinder romantasy. It's the start of a trilogy about a gifted bookbinder and the cursed immortal general bound together by a dangerous magical bargain. I've heard this is hot and steamy, and that's exactly what I need right now because whatever this was, whatever sexual stuff was in this, icked me out. I need something good. I need something to sink my teeth into. I need something that will just hold me and not let me go after what I just read. So that will be the next book, and I will take them with y'all, whether I have something to say in the middle or I finished it. But fingers crossed, this is good. I need something to redeem my week. Hello, my good people. I have a read update for you on Kiss of the Black Flame. I am about 117 pages in, and I'm loving it. Yes, I'm loving it. Oh, I'm so happy that I love it. First of all, the writing is good quality, which, sometimes is a worry, a stressor in romantasy, because a lot of the times plot, magical elements, and the romance, the spice, is the focus, which obviously I don't mind, but then the quality of the writing can suffer because of that. Not with this one so far. I am loving it. It's almost medieval-esque because they're cursing. They're kind of in this gritty, harsher world, but it still feels grounded and not too cringy, which I'm appreciating. And I'm also loving the way the romance is developing in this book because I feel like most romances these days are enemies to lovers, and this isn't really an enemies to lovers in my opinion. It's more of two people taken prisoner by the same evil entity having to make a bargain with each other in order to save themselves and what's important to them, while also being a little bit of grumpy sunshine in there. I think those are the main tropes, kind of a natural blossoming romance between two very opposite individuals, but I wouldn't categorize them necessarily as enemies. I mean, technically, our MMC is a part of a certain group of people that are like these immortals that our FMC, who is a mortal, sort of kind of don't like, but honestly, I'm not really getting the enemies vibe. I'm just getting more grumpy sunshine. Our MMC is very like, will you stop talking? Like, shut up. Like, all you do is talk. And the FMC is very like bright and bubbly and like always things on the bright side. So I think it's just more of a grumpy sunshine, and they're both having to fight to take power away from this evil villain. And yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. I can just tell that the spice scene is going to be so good when we finally get to it. I can just tell. And the chemistry I'm really enjoying. I have a strong feeling that if I get to this sooner rather than later tonight, I could finish it because I am flying through it and I'm having a great time. So that's the reading update. And the other reading update is I think I'm going to be taking Daybreak by Autumn Woods, the second book after Nightshade, off the docket for this vlog. I just feel like, unfortunately, I want to put a pause on that because I have a lot of ARCs, a lot of library books to get to, but more importantly, I have book club books I need to get to. Specifically, I really want to start reading Good People by Petmina Sabit because that is my Let's Get Literate online Fable book club, and I find that if I don't kind of get the ball rolling with reading the book and commenting my thoughts, that sometimes people don't engage. And then I have another one I need to read for my horror book club, which is next weekend, etc. And I just don't want to delay getting on all those book club books, but the good news is that I will be vlogging those book club books. So you will still get a vlog out of it, but I just think for now, Daybreak is going to be put on hold. I hope y'all are not too disappointed. It is a sequel to a book, and like I said, I would have included a lot of spoilers, so I'm not sure how many people would have wanted me to read it and review it anyways in a vlog, but that is the update. I think I'm going to be ending with Kiss the Black Flame, but if it keeps going the way it's going to be a very good and positive review. So that's the update. I will let y'all know when I have finished Kiss of the Black Flame. Well, hello. It's funny seeing you here. I have finished Kiss of the Black Flame. I have. And I'm giving it 4 stars. I think in my most recent check-in, I was really loving this. I was really raving about it. I think the first 70% are where it's strongest, and kind of that last ending time I think are its weakest points. But let's talk about it. I think you'll like this book if you love classic romantic tropes like grumpy sunshine, reluctant allies to lovers, and sort of a forced bond or bargain, with a dash of Lord of the Rings elements, which really came into play like the last 30% of this book. It's really interesting. Things I liked. Our FMC Sage is part ball of sunshine, but also gritty and fearless, which I really liked. And she's like 35 years old, so she's a bit of an older FMC, which I think is more unique to the genre. She also deals with chronic pain and has gone into mass amounts of debt in order to try to figure out what is wrong with her, which is incredibly relatable to the American healthcare system and what many chronic pain havers have gone through. I will touch on the chronic pain rep in my dislikes, but for that part of it, I think it's good representation. And the MMC Archer is the standard tall, brooding immortal that is bitter and jaded after having been imprisoned for 200 years, but when he meets Sage, he kind of sparks back to life. And I found their initial banter because again, he's very grumpy, she's very sunshine, to be comical and enjoyable, especially at the beginning. And there's also some side characters in Sage's life: Raven, her best friend; Yevna, her adoptive, basically foster mother; and Grim, a dog, which I felt like really added to sort of the more heartwarming, grounded element of the story. It gave other characters to attach to, which I think was wise on Helen's part. And the romance, it is a bit slightly insta-lusty, as Archer is immediately drawn to Sage the second he sets eyes on her. But honestly, I didn't really mind that much. It wasn't a point of contention for me, and I loved the tension that was building throughout this book before they get together. It was very delicious. And when they do get together, I mean, there's a scene in a market. It is juicy, it is spicy, it is hot, okay? So I do think that some of those spicy scenes were done well. Also, there's an inclusion of real bookbinding practices, as Sage is a bookbinder and her skills are necessary for the continuation of the story and restoring this book that they need to get their hands on before the evil villain does. And I feel like Helen gave a balanced perspective of what she was actually doing and describing it, which was interesting to me. I never really known the process of bookbinding, and it was very fascinating. And lastly, the overall basic simple plot of having to make a bargain, sealing it with a kiss in order to basically save the balance of their world and prevent destruction was unique and interesting to me. And I think baseline, the plot is entertaining. Well, now when it comes to what I thought could have been improved, when it comes to the chronic pain rep, I have seen some negative reviews saying that this is not good representation. And I feel that that concern is valid. As someone who does not have chronic pain, I prefer to listen to people in said community. And if they feel like the representation is lacking in here, then that is valid. So I just want to say that it's not really up to me to decide whether or not the chronic pain representation in this book is the most accurate or not. Apparently some people think it is, some people think it's not. So just know going into it, while there is that representation, whether it's accurate or not, I would listen to people from that community. Also, as I mentioned Lord of the Rings in the beginning, I can directly point out specific connections to the Lord of the Rings and elements in this book. For example, the main villain is a guy that was destroyed and cursed, so he doesn't have a physical body, but he has like pieces of himself all over the land, you know, and he's slowly building up an army and building up his power. It's very Sauron coded. And then towards the very end of the book, once she fixes this magical book that, if got into the hands of our Sauron-like character, could destroy the world, she fixes it and she presents it to kind of the good guy side. And there's all these different people from all these different parts of the country, and it's decided that we need to bring this book to these sleeping king and queens. I mean, I don't really want to explain in detail the plot, but there's like these sleeping king and queens, and we need to bring the book to them. Maybe it can awaken them, right? But we gotta travel like all the way across this land in order to get there. And so therefore, it's said that there needs to be a champion of the book to hold on to the book, who is not persuaded by the book's power and won't be easily corrupted. I mean, are we seeing the similarities here? So I think on one hand, it's fun to have elements from a story that you love included in a story that you're currently reading. But on the other hand, being able to so clearly identify these similarities makes the author's inspiration very obvious. So I think it's a double-edged sword. And the last thing I didn't love was that the relationship between our main couple, Sage and Archer, eventually got a bit tiresome, their dynamic, as it's mostly the same cycle of Sage getting mad at Archer, Archer apologizing, and they make up, and then the cycle goes on. And I honestly didn't really fully understand why Sage would get so mad at Archer sometimes, and vice versa, as Archer would lash out at Sage. And this cycle continued until the very end of the book. And like I said, it's got a bit repetitive and a bit unoriginal, and felt like it was more lenient to the same romantic tropes than bringing me something unique. However, that being said, overall, I enjoyed my time with this book, and I think it'll appeal to a lot of romantasy readers. I'm intrigued to see where the trilogy will go, and if our main couple can overcome the challenges that has been thrown in their path. And I would still recommend it, especially again, to your standard romantasy lover. This probably has a lot of elements that they would enjoy, and I just hope that the author comes up with something a little bit different, something fresh and a new perspective. But I can see myself being really invested in this trilogy if it keeps going the overall good way it is. So yeah, Kiss the Black Flame, it is coming out September 22nd. And if you're a romantasy lover, if you love the tropes I mentioned, then pick this up. I think you'll really love it. All right, I have to leave for work in 4 minutes, so I'm gonna wrap up this vlog. Thank you so much for being here. That was my anticipated newer releases vlog. I just hope you're having a great day or night wherever you are. I hope you're about to read something absolutely delicious and scrumptious. I want that for you. And I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.